Hello friends, my name is Emile, and welcome back to some more Reach the Peak, the show where you guys recommend the cars and then I take them up a hill climb course to see which one can come out on top. Today we have 5 vehicles here for you as usual, and we are going to be kicking things off with the first challenger to our top spot car, the Lamborghini Veneno that we've had in quite a while. We have the 2011 Lamborghini Sesto Elemento, 571 horsepower, 398 foot-pound of torque, 2,202 pounds of weight. This is an S2 class car, 957 MPI when equipped with the snow tyres. It is the most powerful vehicle here today. So, the Sesto Elemento, of course, if you can't beat them normally, then fight fire with fire. We have another Lamborghini to challenge for our top spot. So the Veneno has sat up there for about 15 episodes and has been relatively unchallenged since. So I figure we'll send the Sesto Elemento to gun for its top spot. Working in the favour of the Sesto Elemento is it is much lighter than the Veneno. Power to weight ratio wise, I believe it might be a nickel bit better. It is down on power to the Veneno, it's down on straight line speed, but in theory it should be a better handling vehicle. Me personally, I do like the Sesto Elemento. I think I prefer the Lamborghini Veneno sort of style wise and as a car, but I do love the Sesto Elemento. It's a crazy contraption. As far as this car goes to drive, it is pretty darn great. It does understeer quite considerably, and it's not an issue through sort of the medium to high speed corners. However, through the lower speed stuff, it really does struggle, which is something that the Veneno didn't do. Granted, I do think through certain corners this does take slightly more speed than the Veneno, so again, it is going to be close at the end to see which one of these cars did indeed come out on top. Although I do have to say, personally, if I was sort of picking a car to drive up here, I'd probably choose the Veneno just because you don't have to worry about it as much. But the Sesto, you know, I can't deny the Sesto is a great car. It is stupidly quick. I'm not sure which one of these cars straight line speed wise is better. I will say the Sesto does get bumped around a little bit more. This thing is basically full on race car with suspension and so on, so yeah, the Veneno has a little bit given suspension, the Sesto really doesn't, so the Veneno is a slightly better car to drive, but we will have to wait to the end to see which one can come out on top out of those two. Next up, we have the complete opposite of the Sesto Elemento. We have a 2011 Ford F-150 Raptor, 411 horsepower, 434 foot-pound of torque, 6,006 pounds of weight. This is an A-class car, 722 MPI with the snow tyres. It is the most torquey vehicle here today. However, it is unsurprisingly the heaviest. So the F-150 Raptor, this is probably my favourite pickup truck of all time. I love the GMC Cyclone, I love the Ram SRT10. I think the Raptor's just, I prefer the Raptor, especially this sort of model. The more modern Raptor, I'm not a huge fan of the 2017. Like, it's a cool car and all, but I think for me the definitive style is this sort of 2011, not even the Shelby Raptor. You know, I love this 2011 design of the Raptor, and at one point this is one of my favourite cars ever. It has dropped down a little bit now, but it is still a phenomenal vehicle, and I do like it very much so. Anyways, the Raptor, it is a little bit slow. Now, of course, saying that about a 414 horsepower sort of super truck with a massive V8 in it, you know, that does sound a little bit weird, but it is just a little bit off the pace of what some of the other cars going up here had. What it has got going for it, however, is it is a terrific handling vehicle. It really is a very good handling vehicle. It's got the all-wheel drive, it's extremely planted. You could say it feels a little bit heavy, but honestly that weight doesn't transfer to as much as you'd expect. You know, usually the heavy cars don't feel quite this nimble. Ultimately, I think the thing with the Raptor is it kind of could do with an extra 100 horsepower, and luckily that's why we do have the Shelby Raptor in the game, you know, because that car is essentially this, but with 150 more horsepower, so yeah. Whether this car will be able to beat the other Raptor will remain to be seen. Of course, that Raptor did go up a long time ago, so the times might be a bit skewed on that front, and of course it did go up on a live stream as well. But yeah. I love the F-150 Raptor, even if it doesn't do particularly well. I love it. I think it's a great vehicle, and yeah, a really impressive thing to drive actually. And if you're going to build something up for taking on this peak hill climb course, the Raptor should be at the top of your list. Next up, another interesting car. We have the 1999 Mitsubishi Lancer EVO VI, 280 horsepower, 300 foot-pound of torque, 2,824 pounds of weight. Bit of an asterisk next to that, this car should weigh 2,822 pounds, however I put a front bumper on it. It's like a Tommy Macklin edition bumper to go with this design. It does add 2 pounds of weight, and it also adds 1 PI, meaning this car is a 767 when equipped with the snow tyres. It should be a 766 normally. Anyways, the Evo 6. Why is this an interesting car? Well, it's because the upgrade hero variant of this car has already gone up the hill climb course, and it did phenomenally well. In fact, it is in the top 5 of the cars that have gone up here. I think it's only just sub 2 minutes. It's like 2 minutes something. It's not quite sub 2 minutes, but it is extremely close. That was a very excellent car to drive. Of course, you know, that is a heavily modified, rally-tuned Evo. How does this particular model do? Well, it is very, very good. It is a little bit on the understeery side. Of course, we do see that with most of sort of the Imprezas and the Evos and so on. You know, they are more understeery vehicles, I would say, than maybe you would expect. But, you know, then again, that's just how these things handle on the road. You know, they're a bit understeery on the road. They're a bit understeery going up here. But other than that, it is an excellent car to drive. You know, the gears are really good in it. It has excellent handling. It doesn't get bogged down. It is great. You know, the Evo 6 for me is my personal favourite of all the Lancer Evos. You know, I love the Evo 9. I love the Scorpion's Evo 9, of course. I've confessed my love for that car several times. But the Evo 6, especially the Tommy Macklin edition, that will always be my favourite Evo ever. You know, it's just a excellent looking car, and it's a very cool historical car to boot. In fact, I'm very happy with this design. I'm definitely keeping this one after the show. This sort of blue Tommy Macklin edition looks absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, the Evo 6, great car, great car, as you'd expect, of course. Again, if you're going to build something out for reaching the peak, the Evos, Imprezas, they're always a excellent choice. Next up, we move on to some rear-wheel drive cars now. We have the 2005 Honda NSX-R, 290 horsepower, 225 foot-pound of torque, 2,800 pounds. It is an A-class car, 797 PI when equipped with the snow tyres. The Honda NSX, of course, this is the definitive Japanese car. Most people sort of fall in love with the first generation. Me, I'm not the same as that. I much prefer the second gen of NSX. I know there's 1 or 2 people who agree with me on that. I just prefer the fixed headlight design. You know, this is my favourite of the NSXs, as much as I do really like the modern day 2017 car. You know, the classic, you can't really argue with it. Of course, it is mid-engined rear drive, which of course means there is more weight over the rear end of this vehicle. And does that affect it? A little bit. Once it gets sliding, it can get bogged down. However, sliding isn't too much of an issue in this car. If you can sort of control your steering, it really isn't. You know, you don't even have to do it that vigilantly, you know. And once this car, you know, once you've mastered that up, this is excellent for a rear-wheel drive car. It is it's one of the best handling rear-wheel drive cars I've ever driven up here. It gets a superb amount of traction. I think that's just something to do with, you know, having the weight over the rear helps to push those tyres into the snow, but because it's not too heavy, it isn't putting too much weight on there, and because there isn't, you know, an awful lot of power, it means that it can essentially put its peak power to the floor at all times, and that results in excellent traction. It is an excellent vehicle. If you haven't driven the NSX, which I assume most of you have, I do recommend going to do so. But this 2005 car, yeah, it is an absolutely solid, really very good car. You know, if you're building a rear-wheel drive rally car, the NSX, you know, I wouldn't recommend putting too much power into it or anything. But if you want to run it relatively stock, you know, like an A-class rally car, NSX might be a very good choice indeed when it comes to that. And finally today, I mean, we had to have a slow car at some point. This is the 1968 Abarth 595 Esseesse something. I remember I used to know how to pronounce that, but I've completely forgotten now. It has 28 horsepower, 34 foot-pound of torque, and 1,257 pounds of weight. Yep, you heard me right, 28 horsepower, 34 foot-pound of torque. That makes this one of the lowest powered vehicles to ever go up this course. In fact, it might, other than the Isetta, it is the lowest powered. Of course, it's one of the lightest, 1,257 pounds. It, of course, is the least powerful car here today, the least torquey vehicle here today, the lightest car, and at D-Class 296 PI, it is the lowest in PI. In fact, I believe this might be the lowest in PI car we've ever had. Maybe something was like 222, I remember that, I don't know. But I do think this is definitely on the lower end of the PI scale of cars that we've had up here. The Abarth 595 I have very much of a soft spot for. I love the Fiat 500. I think I've said this several times in videos, you know, I love the 500, you know, whether it be the modern one or the retro one, I really like these cars. And the 595 in particular is a really cool car for me because this was essentially the first ever sort of affordable performance car. Essentially, you know, back in the day, you know, 1968 performance cars, you know, they were heard of, you know, you had your 300 SELs and so on, but they were big ticket item cars, you know, they were cars that you really could only dream about. The 595 was affordable performance, you know, it didn't cost that much more than a standard 500, and it is an incredible feat of engineering, really. I mean, it's double the horsepower of the normal Fiat 500, it's got dual exhausts, I mean, how can you not love it? As far as it drives, it's slow, as you'd expect. It's got 28 horsepower. It loses speed on the hills. It's not surprising in that regard. It is good handling. The gears do limit it a little bit. I've sort of said this. I think it's just a fact with these sort of slower cars, you know. You want to always keep it in the peak power band, and it's kind of hard to do on some of these sort of cars, you know, because either they have too long at gears, or they just have way too short. And I think in the case of the Abarth, it is too short. I never really chucked this thing into 4th gear, admittedly, but that's because 4th gear you engage at about 54 miles an hour, and this car got over 54 miles an hour once in this run. But yeah, you know, it's slow, as you'd expect, but it's just such a lovable little car, really. You know, I would take this thing over the other little cars in this game. I'd take this thing over most. If you offered me, like, cars in real life, to go and drive in this game, the 595 would be one of the top for me. You know, I'd love to experience this car. I can imagine it's, you know, it's nothing special in the games, you know, it's very slow, but I can imagine in real life this thing is absolutely terrifying because it's very, very small. It's, you know, I can't imagine it's particularly solid, but yeah, it has 28 horsepower rear engine rear drive. How can you not want to drive this thing in real life? Just to experience the insanity that is the 595 Abarth. But yeah, really very, very good vehicle. It won't be contending for our top spot, which, again, going back to it now, has the Sesto Elemento beat the Veneno? Not quite. It is a second down. It goes into second place with a 157.117. That is still a very respectable time. It is off the Veneno. However, it beats the MG Metro, beats the Bugatti Veyron, beats the Lancer EVO VI. Again, very impressive time from the Sesto, but not quite enough to knock off the Veneno. Moving down the board some more, we find the Evo VI in 59th place with a 213 dead. That's the first time I think I've ever done one of those in one of these time trial series. It just beats a Lamborghini Countach, Skyline R34, misses out on a Horizon Edition 22B, but that's still pretty good, you know, 22B and the Evo VI is supposed to go at each other, and it only just beat the Horizon, or only the Horizon Edition just beat it. Moving down the board some more, the NSX finds itself in 67th place with a 214.401. Yes, I admit, the 214 section of this board looks really weird. Everything ends in a 1. I don't know why that is. It's just the way it happens, apparently. Moving down some more, the Ford Raptor goes into 120th place with a 221.741. Beats the Aston Martin Vulcan by 1,000th of a second, beats a 695 by Posto, loses out slightly on an Nismo GTR, a Hyundai Genesis, the Escort Cosworth. Pretty good time from the Raptor when you consider how much it weighs. And finally, we have to go a long way down the board to find the 595, which goes into 203rd place with a 329.710. It beats the Pterodyne Gurkha by almost 10 seconds, which is a very good thing because the Gurkha is useless. It loses out on the Land Rover Series 3 by about 4 seconds, so there you go. Anyways, friends, I want to thank you all very much for watching this episode of Reach the Peak. As always, if you have requests you'd like to make for this series, simply leave them down below in the comment section, and I will add them to my list, which can be found in the description if you want to see a full list of every car that's been requested. With that being said and done, friends, thank you all very much for watching. My name has been the Real Emile, and until next time, a farewell.